Hello everyone, here is our PowerPoint introducing the History Department at Devizes School to you. We are really excited that you're going to be starting our school in the next academic year. We want to introduce ourselves and introduce the topics that we are doing next year when you will be in Year 7. We also want to introduce an exciting competition that there will be prizes awarded for. So first off, let's meet the History Department. The first picture on the screen, this is of Mr. Strickland, who is actually the head of history and the head of global studies at Devizes School. You'll also be very familiar with this face. This is Mrs. Nelson, who is your head of year. This is myself, Mrs. Battle. And this is Mr. McNiff, who is our new history teacher starting in September. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, we have all been given 3-letter initials. Look out for these initials on your timetable because this will tell you which history teacher you have. You can see TXS, CES, RLB and EXM. But we also can't forget Mrs. Carter. She's currently on maternity leave looking after her baby, and she was the previous head of Year 7, so some of you that have older siblings or friends within the school may recognise her and her name. She will be back to Devizes School about halfway through your time in Year 7. Now it's important for us to go through what to expect when you enter your history classroom next year. I'm sure the vast majority of you are very excited, but it's understandable to be a little bit apprehensive as well. We hope with all the information on this PowerPoint that hopefully you will feel a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more happier about the changes that you will go through. You will all get 4 history lessons a fortnight. With the fortnightly timetable, this may mean that some of you get 3 history lessons one week and 1 history lesson the other week, but you will all get the same amount of time in front of your history teacher. You will all get to study history for 3 years at Devizes School, then history becomes an optional subject at GCSE. You can even take history at A level, so you could study history at Devizes School for 7 years. You will get the chance to hold some very old objects in your lessons. My current Year 7s have really enjoyed learning about the English Civil War because they've had the chance to hold some musket balls that were nearly 500 years old. You will also have lots of historical props that we like to show you, especially if you have Mr. Strickland as your teacher, who is quite infamous for dressing his pupils up in World War I outfits. Probably one of the key questions you have is wanting to know what you will be studying at history at Devizes School. We know that all the primary schools offer different aspects of their history lessons. When you come to Devizes School, you will all be learning about the same things. Having a look on the screen, you can see the table here shows what you learn in histories throughout Years 7, 8 and 9. I'm only going to be talking about Year 7, so please have a look at the green section within the table. We start off the year by looking at what is history. We're going to have a look at a couple of mysteries to get your opinions on what you think happened. We're also going to tackle trickier aspects of history by looking at sources and also trying to understand chronological order. And around October we move into medieval history. And some of the highlights here include the Battle of Hastings and trying to solve the mystery of who killed Thomas Becket. After Christmas, when we return in term 3, you get to become the teacher when we learn about our family history. For your homework project, you will be researching into your family history. You can pick somebody else or a celebrity if you would like to. Within the classroom, we look at Tudor England and we look at the most famous monarch of our time, who was Henry VIII. In term 4, we look at Stuart England and we look at the English Civil War. We ask the question, what did the king do to have a war declared on him? In terms 5 and 6, we finish Year 7 off by looking at industrial Britain. Here some of the things we look at include Jack the Ripper, the Titanic, and also looking at how transport has changed in our time. Here are some visuals to help go alongside the table in the previous slide. Picture 1 you will be learning about in Term 1. As it is a mystery, I'm not going to give you any clues to what this picture is showing, but I assure you that it is real. In Term 2, we start to look at the Battle of Hastings, one of the most infamous battles in British history. In Term 4, we look at the execution of Charles I. And in Term 5 and 6, we look at the Industrial Age, which is much more modern for us, and the Titanic is one of the highlights there. So, what do we want you to do? Well, we want you to be excited to start Devizes School and a very exciting chapter in your lives. We also want you to try and prepare yourself for history in Year 7. There are going to be 3 activities that you must complete. And there is also going to be a competition that will be judged by the history department. This is optional. We are now going to go back in time and introduce you to our 3 compulsory tasks. We're going to go back into the time of medieval kings. Here are some very famous paintings made. However, we cannot be so sure exactly what these men look like. Have a look at these paintings and these very famous portraits. Is there anything that you notice in common? What makes these men seem so powerful? Before we ask you for your opinion and your ideas on medieval kings, it's important that we know what medieval kings were held responsible for. We're going to have a look at 4 different ideas, but actually if you do some research, you'll understand that medieval kings had much more to do than just these 4. A medieval king was held responsible for law and order. They had to be quite scary and formidable so that people within the country knew they had to follow strict rules and laws. They also had to be good at winning battles. They had to have skills, they had to have effective weapons and could raise an army. It's very important for them to win battles so that they could conquer new lands and territory, but also for them to defend the country in case we are attacked by invaders. Also important is making alliances with other countries. War was very expensive, so it was not practical for a king to be fighting throughout their whole reign. Therefore, alliances were drawn up with other European nations so that the king could focus his attention on other things. Also, he was responsible for the wealth of the country. The king would have been seen by everyone on the front of coins. It was very important that he made sure that the country had a stable currency and that people were able to feed themselves and to be quite prosperous. Now it is time for us to start our first activity. We are looking for you to create a list of at least 5 good qualities or traits a medieval king should have. These can be written as just simple bullet points. An example of a good quality or trait a king should have could be something like kindness. It's important for a king to be kind so that he treats his people fairly. Now we would like to hear your opinion. Opinion is very important in history and gains you a lot of marks, especially when you take GCSE. We would like to know, out of the list that you already have, which quality or trait do you think is the most important reason to be a good medieval king? There is no right or wrong answer, as this is your opinion, but please explain why you think your certain quality or trait is the most important. Now let's move on to activity 2. Very similar to the one you've just done, however, this time we would like to think about bad qualities that a king could have. An example for this could be bias. A king may be biased against certain people and have favourites and not treat everyone the same, which again is not very kind. Please feel free to bullet point your list. We would like a minimum of 5, but we would love it if you could come up with some extra of your own. Again, we would love to hear your opinion. There is never a right or wrong answer. We would like to know which quality or trait do you think is the most important in making a bad medieval king. Please also explain why you think this. Okay, this gets you really high marks at GCSE history. The final compulsory activity is asking you again to make a bullet point list. We would like a minimum of 5 skills a medieval king would need to win a battle. An example of this could be good organisation. The king would need to organise his army, make sure that they are ready to fight, make sure that they are ready with their weapons, and make sure that they are in a very defensive position. Again, we would love to hear your opinion. There is no right or wrong answer, but which skill out of the ones you previously listed do you think is the most important to winning a medieval battle? Please explain your opinion to us so we can see why you think that. Finally, I'd like to introduce you to our competition. This is not compulsory, but we hope that many of you will want to take up this competition as there will be prizes in the next academic year. With history, our prizes are always edible. Before I introduce you to the competition, I just want to go through a few rules just so you're really clear on what you need to do to be able to win. There is going to be 1 entry per student. Please work on this individually and not with others. We want to hear your opinion and not the opinion of your friends. Your entry can be handwritten or word processed. We really don't mind, whatever is easier for you. The maximum length of this is going to be 1 side of A4 paper, so make sure that your work is really concise and very persuasive in what you're trying to explain. Prizes and certificates will be awarded in a Year 7 assembly next year. Please hand your entry into any history teacher during the first week we are back at school. You can also hand your entry to Miss Nelson, your head of year, who you'll be seeing quite often. So here is the competition. We would like you to write a persuasive argument that you have the right qualities to be a successful king or queen. Think of the things that you're really good at. Think of the skills that you have. Think about things in your personality that you think are really good. As long as you can persuade us that you would be a successful king or queen, we will start awarding people certificates and edible prizes. Best of luck, and we look forward to reading them.